They gave her the house, the land, and every penny in the family account. You know what I got? My grandmother's old sewing machine. That's it. My name's Elena, and 9 years ago, I walked out of that lawyer's office with nothing but a dream in my suitcase. Today, that dream is an empire. But the path wasn't pretty. It was stitched from rejection, second chances, and a name I had to build myself. Have you ever been left out of something you thought was yours? I'd love to hear how you handled it. The ceiling fan above me squeaked like it was trying to fill the silence. The air inside the law office was thick, part southern humidity, part something heavier. I sat up straight, the navy dress I borrowed from a church thrift shop clinging to my back. It was the best thing I owned, and it didn't feel like enough. I glanced down at the envelope in my lap. The acceptance letter to Parsons was creased now, almost soft from how many times I'd opened and closed it. I didn't need to read it again. I knew every word. A full ride. A start I'd earned stitch by stitch since I was 9 years old, cutting up pillowcases to make dresses for dolls. Grandpa saw me then. He said the farm would be mine one day. He said I was the one who dreamed in fabric. Across the room, Claire looked like she had just come from a lunch date. She was lounging back in her seat, legs crossed, fingers tapping at her phone screen without a care. Mom sat beside her, stiff and elegant, wearing her favorite pearl necklace. She hadn't looked at me once since I walked in. Mr. Barrett cleared his throat. "We'll begin," he said, unfolding a crisp set of papers. The words felt rehearsed, but his eyes flicked toward me like he already knew I'd need steadying. "To my granddaughter, Elena Griffin," he began, and for half a second I let myself hope. "I leave my late wife's sewing machine." That was it, a sewing machine. I blinked. My fingers curled tighter around the envelope in my lap. He kept reading, but the words turned to static until he got to Claire's name. "To my granddaughter, Claire Griffin, I leave the Griffin farmhouse, all 37 acres of land, and the entire contents of the family savings account, currently totaling $186,000. Claire smiled without even pretending to be surprised. Mom finally turned to me, her voice gentle and practiced. "Honey, it's what your grandfather would have wanted. Claire's starting her own lifestyle platform. She needs a foundation." "That's not what he told me," I said quietly. "People change their minds," she replied, brisk and final. "Parsons isn't exactly practical. You'll bounce back." The phrase landed hard, like a door slamming shut. I stared at the will, then at Claire, who gave me the faintest smirk. "You knew," I said. The words dragged themselves from my throat. "You convinced him." Mom's smile flattened. "I did what was best for the family." I stood. My chair scraped against the wood floor, sharp and jarring. Mr. Barrett looked up in alarm. Claire didn't even blink. "I'm leaving," I said, "and I'm not coming back." "Elena, don't be dramatic," my mother called after me, rising partway from her seat. I didn't answer. My voice had already said enough. I walked out, past the oak doors, past the hallway with photos of clients framed in gold, and into the burning Georgia sun. The heat hit me like a wave, but it felt cleaner than the air inside that room. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew it wasn't back there. New York didn't greet me with a warm welcome. It hit me with the thick stench of subway exhaust and the clang of too many footsteps moving too fast. My whole life fit into one rolling suitcase and a tote bag. In my pocket, 3 20s, 2 10s, and a couple crumpled singles. Exactly $312. That and Grandma's sewing machine wrapped in 2 sweatshirts like I was carrying a fragile heirloom, because I was. The room I rented in Queens was half below street level, with a tiny rectangle of a window that only showed feet walking by. The mattress dipped in the middle like someone had slept through 3 breakups on it, and the radiator sputtered like it was arguing with the walls. I didn't cry the first night. I just lay there, palms on my chest, staring at the ceiling and repeating Grandpa's words like a prayer. "You don't need the world to believe in you," he used to say. "You need one needle and some thread." I found a flea market 3 blocks from the train station. It smelled like incense and fried dough, and every stall was packed with color. I asked a vendor if I could rent a small corner. He shrugged. $20 a day, bring your own table. I didn't have a table, so I used a folding chair and a milk crate stacked with a crate I found near a deli. I wrote my sign with a Sharpie. Same-day mending, quick design fixes, cash only. People mostly walked past me. I didn't look the part. Frizzy ponytail, thrifted hoodie, hands too cold to hold steady. On day 3, a woman stopped. She held a denim jacket with a rip along the side and said, "Think you can save this?" I nodded, then asked if she liked florals. She raised an eyebrow. I pulled out a scrap from my old stash and sewed in a soft cotton lining behind the tear. She came back a week later with 2 friends. Word spread, slowly, then steadily. I stitched through morning so cold my breath hovered above my machine. I wore fingerless gloves and heated my tea twice before it stayed warm. My roommates, a poetry student who recited sonnets in the shower and 2 dancers who never cooked but always laughed, cheered when I brought home cash. It wasn't much, but it felt like something real. Then one afternoon, a tall woman with red hair and silver boots picked up a jacket I had reworked from 3 different pieces. She turned it over, tracing the seams like she was reading my story. "You made this?" I nodded. "Could you do one for me? Something edgy. Southern, but not sweet." "I can," I said. "Give me a week." She came back in 5 days, paid me $120 in cash, then asked for my Instagram handle. I didn't have one, so she took a photo and posted it anyway. That night, her post hit 300,000 followers. My phone buzzed until the battery gave out. I lay on that old mattress in the basement room, too stunned to sleep. I didn't celebrate. I built a website, registered a domain, and for the first time I typed a name I chose myself. Elena Rodes's. They gave my sister everything. The house, the money, the name. And still, I built something with my own 2 hands, quietly, steadily, without applause. By 2016, I had moved out of the basement. A laundromat in Brooklyn had a dusty storage room upstairs they weren't using. The walls were faded mint green, the ceiling low and cracked, but it had a window that let in light during the afternoon. The landlord looked me over, saw the denim trench I'd stitched from scraps, and handed me the key without much talk. I set up one long folding table, a stool, and my sewing machine. At night, steam from the laundromat below floated through the vents. My clothes and hair always smelled faintly of lavender detergent, but I didn't mind. It felt clean. It felt like possibility. Orders started trickling in after the red-haired woman's Instagram post. Then they flooded. My inbox became a never-ending scroll of custom requests. Denim jacket with velvet sleeves, patchwork with military vibes, something that says heartbreak, but chic. I worked until my hands ached, and I liked it that way. Tasha found me on a Wednesday. She wore a sweatshirt 2 sizes too big and carried a folded-up dress with uneven seams. She told me she used to sew in high school, then again when she was at a women's shelter after walking out on a man who talked big but hit harder with silence than words. I taught her how to work the machine I kept as backup, and we started sewing in tandem. She was sharp, fast, steady. In less than a month, I offered her part-time hours. By spring, she was my partner, COO Chief of Chaos. We laughed about it one night while labeling tags, sitting cross-legged on the floor with takeout containers and Band-Aids on our fingers. Later, we hired seamstresses, women over 40 who had been laid off from factories that shut down when fashion chased speed instead of skill. Their hands were calloused but gentle, like they remembered the weight of real fabric, not plastic blends. We stitched in near silence most mornings, the kind of silence that hummed with purpose. Every Saturday, we opened our doors to teen girls from schools that didn't offer art classes. We taught them to thread needles, draw silhouettes, match tones. I saw something in their eyes I recognized. That flicker of possibility, just waiting for someone to say it was allowed to grow. An investor once came in wearing loafers worth more than my rent. He offered $50,000 for a third of my business. I shook his hand, smiled, and walked him out. Tasha high-fived me the moment the door closed. "If he can't sew, he doesn't get a seat at the table," she said. A week later, we signed with a small venture group run by 3 women who knew what it meant to start with nothing. They didn't ask for ownership. They asked what we needed to hire more women like us. By 2018, our wait list was 6 weeks long. I stopped using my full name. People didn't know who Elena Griffin was. But Elena Rhodes's? She had a following. And then it came. The email. The subject line read, "Rural Arts Revival Summit. Keynote speaker confirmed." I almost deleted it. Then I saw the name, Claire Griffin, and beneath it a photo of the farmhouse I was supposed to inherit, the one she swore wasn't mine to claim. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, not with grief, not with rage, just clarity. My farmhouse, my sister, my turn. The rain had been falling since morning, a steady hush against the studio windows. It made everything feel quieter than usual. I was nursing a mug of cold coffee, half drunk and half forgotten when I opened the email. Subject line, Rural Arts Revival Summit. Featured keynote Claire Griffin. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because of her name, but because of the photo below it. The farmhouse, our farmhouse, my grandfather's porch, the one I had painted lilac when I was 12, the same wooden columns now faded and polished in Photoshop to look rustic and charming. Claire was using the house. She was using my name, not the one I'd been born with, but the one I built, board by board, stitch by stitch, out of rejection and will. The promo video embedded in the email auto-played without sound. Claire was standing on the front porch, dressed in cream linen, her hair curled perfectly. The caption read, "Turning Heritage into Hope, a new home for women in design." I closed the laptop and sat very still, the kind of still that holds too much movement underneath. "You okay?" Tasha asked from across the studio. She was organizing zippers by color, the way she always did when she sensed I was on the edge of something. "She's pitching the farmhouse," I said. "Wait, your farmhouse?" "She doesn't know I bought it," I said. My voice sounded too calm. 3 years ago, through the shell company we set up for brand protection." Tasha dropped a handful of brass buttons onto the table. "You're kidding." I shook my head. "She's the keynote speaker. Says it'll be the flagship site for a rural design initiative, a legacy project." "Legacy?" Tasha scoffed. "She didn't even visit that place until Grandpa died," I finished. For a moment, the only sound was the rain and the faint ticking of the wall clock. "You want to go?" she asked. "I need to go." I picked up the phone and called Mr. Barrett. He answered on the second ring. "Miss Rhodes," he said, like always, professional but warm. "I need you to confirm something," I said. "The deed for the property outside Savannah." He didn't hesitate. "Filed under Harper and Rhodes's Holdings. You closed on it June 12th, 2021. You've held it legally and quietly since. Can you send me a certified copy?" "Already on it." I thanked him, then looked back at my laptop. Claire's photo still sat there, frozen mid-laugh. I didn't feel anger. Not exactly. It was something colder, cleaner. The kind of clarity that comes when you stop trying to be understood. "I'll need a suit bag," I said to Tasha. "For the Navy trench?" she asked. "No," I said. "For the first jacket, the one from the flea market, the one I stitched from scraps." She nodded, already pulling it from the sample rack, pressing it with practiced care. That night I booked a first-class ticket to Atlanta. It was the first time I'd booked anything without checking my balance first. When I zipped up that trench coat, raw denim with velvet trim and gold threading, it felt like armor. Not loud, just true. Claire thought she was walking into a celebration. I was walking into a reckoning. Claire stood under the chandeliers, glowing with the kind of confidence you only get from a room that's already clapping. Her voice was smooth, practiced, every word delivered with just enough breath and charm. Behind her, a slideshow rolled through images of my grandfather's farmhouse, the porch, the fields, the weathered barn, each edited to perfection and framed with words like revival and heritage. The ballroom smelled faintly of potpourri and catered chicken. Mason jars held tea lights on every round table. Reclaimed wood signs pointed to breakout rooms with names like Community Roots and Design with Heart. It all looked carefully curated, like someone tried to bottle authenticity and sell it with a branded hashtag. Claire was calling the project the Griffin Initiative. She smiled as she spoke about legacy, about lifting up young women in underserved rural areas. It's not just about land, she said. It's about what you do with it. The last time she smiled like that, she was walking out of Mr. Barrett's office with everything I had earned. I waited until the moderator opened the floor for questions. My hand went up slow and steady. He nodded toward me with a polite smile, probably expecting a gentle question about sustainability or grant funding. I stood. The denim trench I wore shimmered subtly under the lights, gold threading catching just enough reflection to feel deliberate. I walked to the mic like I'd done it 1,000 times before. "My name is Elena Rodeses," I said, "and I have a question for Claire." She blinked, confused. Her smile held, but just barely. "When exactly were you planning to disclose," I continued, "that the Griffin farmhouse was sold 3 years ago and that the current legal owner is sitting in this room?" The room stilled. Claire opened her mouth, then closed it. I'm sorry, what?" I pulled a slim leather folder from my bag and passed it to the moderator. "You'll find the certified deed there. Harper and Rhodes Holdings acquired the property on June 12th, 2021. The moderator flipped through it, lips pressing together. Someone in the front row leaned forward. A camera clicked softly. "I believe the phrase you used was legacy project," I said. "You just forgot to mention it was someone else's legacy." From across the room, I heard glass shatter. I didn't need to look to know it was my mother. Janice always held her wine too tightly when she was nervous. Claire tried to regain her footing. This must be some kind of mistake. There's no mistake," I said. "I've kept quiet because I didn't need to prove anything. But if you're going to use my story, my history, to build a brand, you should know who actually lived it." I handed out copies of the deed to the front row. Tasha was already moving along the aisle, composed, efficient. "I'm not here to destroy anything," I said, voice even. "I'm here to reclaim what was mine and show you what I've built without anyone's permission." I let the silence stretch after that. No one clapped. No one whispered. Just the low hum of the jazz track playing through the speakers and the weight of too many truths laid bare. I turned and walked off stage, my heels soft against the carpet, my back straight. And I left the silence behind me. I didn't tear the house down. I let it breathe again. The porch had been rebuilt with reclaimed pine. The swing creaked like it remembered the weight of old stories. Morning light spilled across the floorboards, soft and golden, casting shadows that stretched long and patient. The farmhouse didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt ready. Inside, the front room had become a studio. Cutting tables stood where the piano used to be. Racks of denim, velvet, and hand-dyed cotton lined the walls. A pot of strong coffee brewed in the corner, and someone had brought in a fresh bouquet of wildflowers. Purple coneflower, black-eyed Susan, Queen Anne's lace. It was the first weekend of our sewing workshop. 12 girls had come in from surrounding towns, each carrying a sketchbook and a little hope. Some of them had never threaded a needle before. Others came in already knowing how to hem jeans with the kind of precision only necessity teaches. Tasha floated between stations, sleeves rolled, her laughter grounding the space like music. Our older seamstresses sat alongside the girls, guiding them without taking over. There was something sacred in the way they all moved. Quiet, focused, unhurried. Around noon, I stepped outside to breathe. The porch smelled of fresh paint and the faint sweetness of the honeysuckle vines I'd planted last month. I sat down with a glass of sweet tea, the kind Grandpa used to make too strong. The breeze was soft against my face. I heard the car before I saw it. A silver sedan rolled up the gravel drive. Janice stepped out in heels too thin for dirt and a blazer too stiff for May. She looked at the house, then at me. "I came to sign," she said. "I know," I replied. She sat across from me at the porch table. I slid the papers toward her. Final ownership transfer, a small addendum naming the workshop nonprofit after Grandpa's original will. She signed without comment. I didn't expect an apology. She didn't offer one. As she stood, she paused, hand resting on the chair. "You did something with it," she said quietly. "He would have liked that." "I know," I said. She left without looking back. That evening, when the last sewing machine went silent, I walked to the office. On the wall behind my desk hung 3 things: a photo of Grandpa and me in front of the barn, the first Walker thread jacket, and a brass plaque that read, "Elena Rhodes, Founder." Outside, the porch swing creaked in the breeze. I sat there as dusk fell, tea still warm in my hand, eyes on the cotton fields just beginning to bloom. They gave everything to my sister. And I still built the empire, stitch by stitch, on my own terms. Sometimes I still sit on that porch swing with a glass of sweet tea, listening to the wind move through the fields like it remembers me. The farmhouse isn't just a place anymore. It's a promise I kept to myself and to the little girl they once overlooked. In life, we don't always get what we're owed, but we can choose what we build from what's left. Forgiveness doesn't have to mean forgetting. It can simply mean moving forward with grace and holding the pen when we write our next chapter. If this story reminded you of a moment when you stood your ground or quietly rose above, I'd love to hear about it. Your story matters too.